One, two, three, let's go!
Could cry for days.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Muzamel. Now, I would like to talk about introduction. Okay, Indonesia is the biggest pelagic country on the planet. Indonesia has in excess of 17,000 islands, of which just around 7,000 are possessed. Kalimantan, Java, Sulawesi, Sumatra, and Papua are the fundamental islands in Indonesia. Likewise, Indonesia additionally has little islands. For example, Bali, Karimun Jawa, Gili, Lombok, which are nearby and worldwide vacational locations. The capital city of Indonesia is Jakarta, which is situated on the island of Java. Okay. The Republic of Indonesia was pronounced in 1945 with an announced war over the current region from Sabang in Sumatra to Merauke in Papua, or the whole space of the previous Dutch or Netherlands East Indies. Albeit the Netherlands held ownership of an enormous piece of this district, which is Papua. A temporary capital was set up in Yogyakarta, the fortress of the transformation. Okay, that's all for introduction.
Okay, let's move to the next part. Branches of government in Indonesia. The first one is legislative, and the second one is executive, and the third one is judicial. So let's discuss about the first one, legislative. Legislative branch is based on the People's Consultative Assembly (MPR) or Indonesian Parliament. The MPR is made up of two bodies. The first one is People Representative Council (DPR), and the second one is Regional Representative Council (DPD). Together, these groups have the power to pass laws, amend the constitution, conduct formal inquiries, oversee the state budget, and dismiss the president and vice president in accordance with the constitution. The People Representative Council, also known as DPR, is made up of 550 representatives elected by the people. The Regional Representative Council or DPD is made up of 4 representatives from each province, as also elected by the people. As of the 2004 election, there were 128 representatives in the DPD. So the next one is executive. The executive branch of government is headed by the president and vice president. The president is the head of the government, the chief of the state. Meanwhile, the vice president is in chief of the armed forces. They serve for a term of 5 years that can be extended once by another term of 5 years when re-elected by the people. So hence the total is 10 years. During these elections, the president and vice president run as a fixed, inseparable pair, which implies that the composition of this pair of great political strategy importance. Important matters that are influenced including ethnic and religions, background and previous social position in Indonesian society. Meanwhile, Indonesian President Joko Widodo, a Javanese Muslim and former businessman, chose to pair with Yusuf Kala, a businessman, a politician and Muslim from Sulawesi. Kala has a long history in Indonesian politics and enjoys widespread popularity in Indonesia, especially outside the island of Java. Widodo was basically a newcomer to national politics at the start of 2014, but Kala's long-standing experience in politics gave the pair more political credibility. In 2019 election, which was won by Widodo, he chose a conservative Muslim cleric, Maruf Amin, as vice presidential candidate. Amin is highly respected by most, if not all, Islamic streams. This choice was a strategic one because religious tension had been high in Indonesia in the year ahead of 2019 presidential election. With Amin by his side, this tension immediately eased. However, it It did give rise to concern about the growing influence of conservative Islamic on Indonesian politics. So last but not least is judicial. The Supreme Court is the final court of appeals and oversees all lower courts. This includes general, military, administrative, religious, and commercial courts. To safeguard its impartiality, it is independent of the executive and legislative branches of government. The highest court in Indonesian judiciary system is the Independent Supreme Court, which also known as Mahkamah Agung. It is the final court and also deals with the dispute between lower courts. A relatively new court established in 2003 is the Constitutional Court, Mahkamah Konstitusi, also known as Mahkamah Konstitusi, which monitors whether decisions made by the Cabinet and Parliament MPR are in line with the Indonesian Constitution. However, most of the legal cases in Indonesia are handled by the public courts, administrative courts, religious court, and military courts. So these are the three branches of government in Indonesia. So that's it.
Indonesia is a republic based on limited separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The Constitution of 1945 is enforced, but based on the Constitutional Amendment of August 2002, beginning with the 2004 presidential elections, the once powerful party-centered presidency is subject to popular election and limited to 2 5-year terms. Prior to the 2004 elections, the People's Consultative Assembly Majlis Permusyawaratan Rakyat, which called is MPR, chose the president and vice president who were not necessarily from the same political party. Under the new law, the president and vice president are elected on a single ticket, and the winning ticket must win more than 50% of the popular vote and at least 20% of the vote in half of the provinces. If these percentages are not met, a second round-of election is held. The president is both chief of state and head of government. The MPR, the highest authority of the state, has both elected and appointed members. Under the amendment that surrendered its president's election powers, the MPR also replaced its 2009 elected members, representative of provinces and various social groups, with elected members of a new legislative body, the 2000 seat House of Regional and Representative, which called Dewan Perwakilan Daerah (DPD), which was established by Constitutional Amendment in 2001. The DPD joins the existing 500 seat House of People's Representative, which called Dewan Perwakilan Rakyat (DPR), in a bicameral all-elected legislature. The members of both houses make up to the MPR. The highest court of the land is the Supreme Court, which is called Mahkamah Agung, composed of justices appointed by the president from a list of candidates approved by the legislature. In 2004, the Supreme Court was preparing to assume administrative responsibility for the lower court system currently run by the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights. Under the Supreme Court is quadripartite judiciary of general, religious, military, and administrative courts. Appeals can be made sequentially from a district court to high court to the Supreme Court. A separate constituent court was established in 2003. The Supreme Audit Board, which called Badan Pemeriksa Kewangan, oversees accountability of public finance and is independent of the chief executive, but its members are chosen by the president. The judicial branch is theoretically equal to the executive and legislative branches and has the right of judicial review of the laws passed by the DPR, as well as government relegation and presidential, ministerial, and governmental decrees. In practice, however, the judiciary is less influential than the executive and legislative branches, and it has often been heavily influenced by the executive branch. Indonesia has not accepted compulsory International Court of Justice jurisdiction.
Hi, next I'm going to explain about political ideology. First, the definition. It is a set of ideas, beliefs, values, and views that compete purposely and unintentionally over offering plans of action, policy making in an attempt to justify, explain, challenge, or reform a political community's social and political arrangement and processes. The concept of ideology is subject to partly incompatible conception. Typically, each ideology has its own opinions about the ideal form of governance and the greatest economic system, for example, capitalism or socialism. The political ideologies have two dimensions. First, the goals. The goal is how society should be organized, and second is the method, the most appropriate way to achieve this goal. Next, I'm going to talk about politics of Indonesia. Indonesian politics are governed by a presidential, representative, democratic republic in which the President of Indonesia serves as both the head of government, as well as a multi-party system. The government is in charge of executive power. Both the government and the bicameral People's Consultative Assembly has legislative power. The judiciary is separate from the executive and legislative branches. In 1945, Constitution established a limited separation of power between the executive, legislative and judicial branches. Presidential with parliamentary traits is how the government is described.
Okay, hi, I will talk about the history of politics of Indonesia. So firstly, we have liberal democracy. So following the dissolution of the Federal of United States of Indonesia, less than a year after its formation on August 17 in the year 1950, an era of liberal democracy in Indonesia began and ended with the imposition of martial law and President Sukarno's 1959 decree on the introduction of guided democracy on July 5th of 1959. It saw the 1955 Bandung Conference, Indonesia's first General and Constitutional Assembly election, and a lengthy period of political instability with no ministering lasting more than 2 years. Secondly, I will talk about guided democracy. So the political system in place from the 1957 until the new order began in the year 1966 was the guided democracy. It was President Sukarno's invention and attempt to restore political stability. He argued that the Western-style democracy was incompatible with Indonesia's circumstances. Instead, he sought a structure based on the old village system of debate and compromise, which took place under the supervision of the village elders. Okay, thirdly, we have the New Order. So basically, President Suharto created the term New Order to describe his dictatorship after assuming power in the year 1966. He coined the name to contrast his rule with Sukarno's, which he dubbed the Old Order. In recent years, the term New Order has come to be associated with the Suharto's years, from 1966 to 1998. And lastly, we have the Reform era. So the post-Suharto era began with Suharto's fall in the year 1998, and Indonesia has been in a period of transition known as the Reformasi. During this time, the political and social environment has been more open and liberal. The process of constitutional reform lasted from the year 1999 to the year 2002, with 4 amendments producing major changes. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk about political party system. The first one is evolution of the Indonesian party system. Since gaining political independence in 1945, Indonesia has had 4 different party systems. Each of these systems arose from pivotal movement that changed not only the nature of the party system, but also the entire regime structure for years. During and after the revolutionary battle against the Dutch, the first Indonesian party system arose from 1945 to 1949. The system presented itself as a significantly fragmented multi-party system. Second, in the last 2 elections, the number of new parties joining the legislature has steadily decreased. Finally, the 2014 election saw an institutionally induced convergence between local and national party systems, putting an end to years of excessive and ever-increasing fragmentation in local party systems. Fourth, there is still an identifiable core of 6 parties that have won seats in each of the 4 post-Suharto elections. Significantly, all but one of these 6 parties were able to break a string of successive losses in 2014, maintaining their central role in the party system. The table below shows the parliamentary election results, major parties only from 1999 to 2014 in percentage. Okay, the second one is Democratic Party. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono's secular nationalist Democratic Party was founded in 2001 as a political vehicle to bring him to the presidency in the 2004 elections. The idea was backed by intellectuals, professors, and nationalist leaders. In 2004, it was resounding success, garnering 55 seats. It nearly tripled this amount to 148 seats in the 2009 elections, which is neither simple nor common for an Indonesian political party. It has also acted as a model for other presidential hopefuls who want to start their own political parties. The Democratic Party has had a difficult time in recent years. It has been the subject of multiple corruption investigations since its term in 2009. As a result, numerous key members of the party, including the chairman and treasurer, have resigned. Other parties have used the fraud and kickback scandals to attack the Democratic Party, pointing out that Yudhoyono proclaimed fighting corruption one of his main campaign goals in 2009. Now that Yudhoyono has nearly completed 2 successful terms as president, he wants to make the Democratic Party a viable political organization in its own right. The other one is Indonesian Democratic Party struggle. PDIP has repeatedly portrayed itself as the populist during Yudhoyono's decade-long presidency. Although the PDI support base is concentrated in Java, which is predominantly Muslim, the party has been vociferous in its support for religious tolerance and plurality, as well as its opposition to initiatives that appear to impose Islam as a state doctrine. The Indonesian Democratic Party, which was the main opposition to the ruling Golkar during Suharto's New Order, gave birth to the PDIP. There are significant disparities between the policies adopted by the PDIP while it was in office and those pursued as an opposition party. PDIP has also been a vocal opponent of the military as an opposition party. Gerindra, Great Indonesian Movement Party. In Indonesia's political landscape, Gerindra is the hot new party. It appears to be a secular party whose main doctrine is Aden nationalism and the defense of the unitary state, Prabowo's political vehicle. Gerindra was founded in 2008 after he failed to obtain the presidential candidacy of his old party, Golkar, in 2004. Gerindra's policy program is unclear and at times contradictory, as its principal goals are to aid Prabowo's presidential candidacy and appeal to the largest number of Indonesians feasible. Gerindra is well-funded and can now run well-planned public relations operation to raise its profile. And the last one is Hanura, People's Conscience Party. Hanura is like a Democratic Party, and Gerindra is a political party founded to help a single person achieve his or her presidential ambitions. Wiranto, a former general, is its patron. Hanura, like Gerindra, has been an opposition party for the previous 5 years and preaches a fiercely nationalist philosophy devoid of specifics. It distinguishes itself by focusing on Eastern Indonesia, notably Sulawesi, as a word base. Hanura's popularity could be boosted beyond the Muslim heartland of Java and Sumatra. And then Hanura's resources will be boosted by the recent appointment of media tycoon Harry Tonestudibjo as the party's major sponsor. Wiranto's presidential campaign, on the other hand, has been overshadowed by Prabowo's thus far.
Okay, next is Islamic political parties called PAN, National Mandate Party. PAN is an Islamic political party that is far and away the most moderate of the religious parties participating in 2014. Amin Rais, a democratic reformer, founded it in 1998. It is unofficially linked to the Muhammadiyah movement, Indonesia's largest and oldest Muslim organization, which is more modernist. PAN also has the most widespread support across the country. It is the only Muslim party in the lower house with the representation from Papua, and it has also backed Christian candidates. Indonesian political parties have been classified as either Islamic or non-Islamic since 1970. Since 2004, the party has backed Yudhoyono's ruling coalition. Hatta Rajasa, the current head, is also Indonesia's coordinating minister for economic issues and his daughter Yudhoyono's son's wife. Since 1999, PAN's electoral fortunes have been relatively constant. In 2009 legislative elections, it gained 46 seats. Because the electoral threshold in 2014 is greater than in past years, PAN is expected to form coalition with smaller parties that have been ruled ineligible to run for office, such as the Prosperous Peace Party, a moderate Christian party. Next is PBB, or Crescent Star Party. PBB is both the smallest and the orthodox Islamic party running in the 2014 elections. The bottom-up implementation of Sharia law is the campaign's primary platform. PBB, on the other hand, has been plagued with the splits and turmoil since its inception in 1998. Nazaruddin Shamsuddin, a graft prisoner, is the party's most visible parliamentary candidate in 2014. Former Police General Susno Dwaji, another well-known graft offender, was also nominated by the party. Susno eluded attempts by the Attorney General's office to apprehend him, despite his conviction being upheld by the Supreme Court. He ultimately handed himself up and is currently in jail. As the conclusion, in the last few decades, Indonesia's political environment has been altered nearly beyond recognition. Indonesia has made a great progress toward democracy throughout the reform era. The legislatures and courts gained a great deal of autonomy from the central government. Next, Indonesia has liberalized and overhauled its political system, which includes the holding of free and fair elections since 1956, government rotations, a multi-party system, and press freedom. Meanwhile, a slew of civil society organizations and other pressure groups have stepped up to act as watchdogs on elected governments at both national and municipal level. Lastly, another significant change is the implementation of a decentralization policy that emphasizes regional autonomy within the country as a necessary component of the development of a more democratic political system. Thank you.